Hello, it is me. I'm just going to show you how to make how I make my dough bread. Um, this is really an experiment for me to see if I can actually use the video program. Anyway, right, look, I started. We start off with an element of strong bread flour. It has to be strong bread flour, not any other kind of flour. I'm not going to give you quantities because this is purely about what I do and how I make it, just to show you how easy it is more than anything. I've disappeared off here because I've suddenly realised I haven't got a decent spatula, spoon, bowl thing to pick the sourdough out with. You see me whizzing around the kitchen intermittently. At least I haven't dropped my phone in this time, which is pretty good. Right, the gloopy stuff is my sourdough. This is oirag. I've been nurturing her for a good few months now, and I'm just branching out into sourdough bread because it's always terrified me. But to be honest, once you've got the sourdough started, which is an incredibly easy process, the bread is time consuming because it does obviously take all day, but you know, that's just the gist of it. Right, here I'm adding some water. Now, you'll see that I don't add all of the water simply because it's sourdough baking is based on hydration levels. So it's always affected by the weather. When it's a hot, dry day, you might need more liquid. If it's a cold, wet day, you might need less. I'm still learning, as you'll see by the bread. So it's a case of trial and error. Here I am just trying to mix in. I'm going to get my knuckles in now and really get the elbows going. Bit of elbow grease going in there. I'm pausing it. Start it again. I'm getting pretty good with it. I'm getting pretty nifty. Now here you can see that the dough isn't picking up all the flour. So I've added a little bit more water to try and clean the bowl. The idea is if you have a clean bowl, then you've obviously got enough hydration in there. See, bowl's relatively clean. Right, clunk, nice gloopy mass on the side. Now, this is where the hard work comes in, but you know, get a bit of music on, or sing a song, or whistle, or whatever you want to do. And the objective is to knead for around about 10 minutes. Sometimes it's slightly more, sometimes it's slightly less. But it is a very gloopy, sticky mess. So if you don't like getting in a mess, and that you might perhaps be better off with a machine. Right, now we are 5 minutes in. I'm pretty tired by this point, but it's still, you know, a bit gloopy, but you can see it's forming now. It's forming more of a ball. Just keep going and keep going with it. I don't know if it's the correct method to knead, but it's what I do. Anyway, as you can see now, I've been going for 10 minutes. I keep pausing and then jumping back in again. You can see it's pretty well formed. What's happened is the gluten in the flour has started working, and it's now forming a ball. Still very sticky, but it's, you know, what it is. Right, now then, here I am rubbing oil into a casserole dish. The simple reason for that is we need to prove the dough now. If we didn't put the oil in, the dough, being as sticky as it is anyway, as you can see, I've just left it on the side for 2 minutes and it's stuck again. So I've got to do a bit more kneading to try and pick it all up. But you have to oil the dish you're going to prove the dough in, otherwise it would stick. As you can see, I'm having problems getting off the surface now, but that's because I don't like waste, so I get as much off as possible. And I'm just rolling it around, try and get it all together. Popping my finger in the top to see if the dough would rise, because one way to see if it's ready is you dunk your finger in a little bit and it just rises up again, so you know the dough is ready. Now what I'm doing over in this distance, which you can't see, is I'm running the tea towel. I've just taken it out of the drawer. I'm running it under the tap because you need to keep the hydration level up. It's very important to keep it covered with a damp towel. And now we're just going to leave it to prove for about 2.5 hours. And just checking the time, which you can't really see, 4:20. I've come back. Of course, at this point I realised I'd actually forgot to put the sugar and the salt in, so I quickly nudged it all in. Right, I came back 3.5 hours later. Can't really see the clock. I think it's 3.5 hours. Can't tell the time this evening. And here we go with the dough. We have to see whether or not it's risen. We're aiming for a rise of about twice its height, and as you can see, it has doubled in size. It's just puffed up. This is all oirag. This is all natural yeast that's done this. So here we go. I'm taking it out now. As you can see, it's very, very sticky, and had I not greased the pan, I would not have been able to get that out at all. But it's looking pretty good, so I'm quite pleased with it. Now, if you notice, all the while that I've been doing this, I have not used flour on the surface. If you put flour on the surface, it mucks up the hydration. Here I am stretching it and folding it to try and shape the dough to get it into a nice little round. Okay, what I'm trying to explain there is I'm trying to pull from the top, very, very gently, obviously, and roll it underneath, so we get this nice little ball shape at the top, and it's all tucked in underneath. And what it does is it tightens it all up. Put a bit of flour on the top there, having just said about the flour, simply because it's now going to go into the bowl, and for that we need to use flour. With sourdough, what we do is we rub flour into cloths, and then we wrap the dough up. Now, here I've just gone off because I have just remembered that I was actually trying to make 2 loaves, and I'd rolled all the dough up in one. So I raced across the kitchen again to go and get a little knife to cut my dough in half. Having just spent all that time trying to get it looking nice, I've cut it in half. This is typical for me. So yeah, yep, definitely. Anyway, off we go again. So now I have 2 patches of dough that I'm going to have to shape. So again, stretching, pulling, folding over, and then trying to get that sort of dome shape again by swinging it round, spinning it round, and trying to get the dough from the top underneath. Just keep that up, and then I will flour the tea towel. There, you see, nice little shape there. Quite proud of that. Oh, that's sweet. Going to do the second one. We're going to have twins here. Folding it over, wrapping it up, turning it over, and yep, the wording says there to try and pull the top underneath. I'm still on the bottom bit, hey ho, but you know what I'm talking about. Trying to get the top underneath. Yep, there we go. And look, we almost have twins there. Oh, so sweet. Oh, I'm trying to be very professional there, showing you what I'm doing, because I am such a professional chef, as you can see. Yep, I know exactly what I'm up to, but I just thought I'd show you what I was trying to do. I'm so pleased with those, my little babies. Oh, they're so sweet. Right, now then, shove them to the side, and we get the flour. We get a bowl, and we put the tea towel in. I decided the bowl was too big, so too small, so I had to fold the towel in half. Now, we have to put flour all over the tea towel, simply because otherwise the dough would stick. And this is what we do. Well, in professional people, they put their dough in a banneton, what's called a banneton, and it's a floured tray, basically, dish. And so I haven't got a banneton, so I'm using a casserole dish and a tea towel. Now, as you see, I've put the bread in upside down. I've got that nice little dome, and I've shoved it over the bottom and stuck the bottom bit that's, you know, all tucked in on the top. And there is a reason for this. You will see this later. Again, dough, a bowl, flour, lots of flour, and then a nice little second twin shoved in the bowl and wrapped up for the night. I decided to put the dough in the fridge overnight. I could have left these for another couple of hours, 2-3 hours, and then put them in the oven. But for me, I decided I was going to go and leave them overnight in the fridge to prove them, so we could have fresh bread in the morning. So that is that for the night. I will now go and put them in the fridge. Bye-bye, says I. Bright and early the next morning, and boy was it. It was 6 o'clock in the morning because I had to go to the car boot. Here I am unwrapping the dough, and you will see that it has proved overnight, even though it's been in the fridge and the fridge is cold. Okay, it's risen and it's looking good. Looking good. Right, now then, this is where I show you how professional I am. You see, what you do is you have to tip it out. You obviously can't cook the bread in the dough in the tea towel, so you tip it up again, and now you can see why I put the dough in upside down, because the bottom bit where it was all tucked in, which was on the top in the bowl, is now on the bottom on the tray. Now, the reason for cutting the top, people with sourdough, they do the most intricate designs, and they have a special razor that they cut with. I unfortunately don't have any specialist equipment, so I just make do with what I've got. I used a knife. The idea is that it helps the bread rise, and you get a lovely crust and a lovely what's called an ear, where it all sort of curls up and sticks up. I haven't reached that stage. I'm not a professional chef, and I'm not really very good. I'm still learning with sourdough. I love the bread I make. It tastes delicious and it's fun, but I haven't yet reached the level where I make a loaf with a great big ear sticking up, or with lots of the sort of raised dough, raised crust. Right, so anyway, here I am. I'm going to put it in a hot oven. I don't show this because I'd be lugging the camera on a tripod. I've now got a new oven, so I'm still learning to cook with it. I've only had it, well, I haven't even had it a week yet. Here we go, nice and clean. You can actually see through the oven door. You may not be able to do that in a few weeks' time, but hopefully you can. I'm very proud of that. Now, as I said here, you always, the hydration level in dough is very, very important. So you have to have a bowl of hot water. Here's my little twins. As you can see, it's already been cut. There is a reason for that, but I'm proud of it. I'm very proud of that bread. There is not a raised crust for it. Now then, you have to wait for this because I had a bit of a surprise. Look at that one. Look at that. That is what would have happened if I hadn't cut it in half. That is huge. But again, I haven't got that raised crust, but the crust is lovely and crunchy and crisp. If you don't want it crunchy and crisp, leave it for a bit. It will soften. If you want it crunchy and crisp again, you put some water on it, whack it in a hot oven, and that's it. Now you see there, that's my bread that I've made. Took me yesterday and overnight. I'm very proud. As I say there, they do taste absolutely delicious. Now you see, the reason I only showed you half a bread loaf, was because I went and sat down and had a cup of tea.